Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku had Dragon Ball Quirk Part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see Part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story by Kyodon from fanfiction.net. So let's start the video. Stop it, Kakin. 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗲, age 5, was standing in front of a young, crying boy, while three bullies loomed towards him. One of them, his former friend, 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗃𝗁. You really still trying to play hero? Even when you're powerless? 𝗵𝗃𝗁 smugly sneered at him. All you Quirk does is give you that stupid monkey tail. 𝗧𝗃𝗁 grit his teeth. Unmoving and unflinching. I don't care. Just leave him alone. All three bullies had their quirks active and ready to use. I think it's time we showed Deku where his place is. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 shouted as he started running towards 𝗧𝗃𝗁. 𝗧𝗃𝗁 readied himself. He knew he couldn't win this fight. But he had to try. He held his hand out in front of him and readied himself from the pain. And then, he felt something travel through him. Pew! Suddenly, a ball of light formed in 𝗧𝗃𝗁's hand, and shot out towards 𝗵𝗃𝗁, hitting the boy in the face. Ack! 𝗵𝗃𝗁 stopped his charge as the blast hit his face. It felt like someone threw a hot pebble right between his eyes. It didn't hurt too much, but it stung a little. Growling. What the hell was that, Deku? 𝗵𝗃𝗁 shouted in confusion and rage. 𝗧𝗃𝗁 didn't know either. Everything suddenly felt different. He could feel something flowing through his entire body. Dwelling deep within him. 𝗧𝗃𝗁 held out his hand again and called the energy to the surface. And once more, a bright yellow ball of energy formed in his hand and floating above his palm. It's my quirk. 𝗧𝗃𝗁 shouted out in joy, and an excited smile came onto his face. I can shoot lasers. Yeah. Weak but lasers. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 pointed out, any positivity in his attitude fading away as he saw the elation on Deku's face. It's not gonna save you, Deku. Get him. With that, 𝗵𝗃𝗁 and his two minions charged at 𝗧𝗃𝗁. 𝗧𝗃𝗁 put both his hands in front of him and called out as much energy as he could as fast as he could, and a barrage of energy ball flew out of 𝗧𝗃𝗁's hands and towards the three bullies. Ah! The two bullies stopped charging and held up their arms to try and block the blast. However, 𝗵𝗃𝗁 just kept on charging through it, ignoring the stings. As 𝗵𝗃𝗁 got closer, 𝗧𝗃𝗁 started to panic. His blast was too weak. He needed something stronger. So he strained his muscles, trying to pull out as much energy into one blast as he could. His barrage stopped and 𝗵𝗃𝗁 grinned as the stinging blast stopped coming at him. Ha! Did you run out of juice already? Your quirk's even shitter than I thought. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 grinned like a feral beast, closing in his prey. But Deku could feel it, the energy welling up inside him and ready to burst. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 got into range and went to explode 𝗧𝗃𝗁 right in the face. Boom! Both 𝗧𝗃𝗁 and 𝗵𝗃𝗁 unleashed their attacks. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 unleashes an explosion right in 𝗧𝗃𝗁's face, and 𝗧𝗃𝗁 unleashes an explosion of his own, at 𝗵𝗃𝗁's chest. Ah! Both boys were blown back to the ground. Gah! Deku! 𝗵𝗃𝗁 shouted out in rage. It felt like someone had thrown a hot rock at his chest, and unlike the other blast, it had hurt quite a bit. But it wasn't enough to keep him down, and he quickly got back up, and more off than ever. Deku, however, was still recovering from the explosion that had hit him right in the face. It having more power than his blast. 𝗵𝗃𝗁 stood over 𝗧𝗃𝗁, ready to beat the CRP out of him. He raised his hand and prepared to hit him with more explosions. Ha! Grrrr! Suddenly, another kid came out of nowhere and charged at 𝗵𝗃𝗁. His hand glowed with some kind of purple energy, and when he swiped his hand over 𝗵𝗃𝗁's chest, a cut appeared in both 𝗵𝗃𝗁's clothes and his chest. Ag! 𝗵𝗃𝗁 stumbled back and clutched his chest. The cut wasn't too deep, not even deep enough to draw BLD, but it still hurt way more than the 5-year-old was ready for. Izuku opened his eyes, finally recovering from the blast to the face, and saw the boy standing in front of him. Facing Bakugo. "I've had enough," the boy said. His skin was a shade of bright green, with white hair and a mohawk. His clothes were fancy and expensive looking, and anyone could easily tell that his family was well off just by looking at him. "Your actions are inexcusable. And I will tolerate this villainous act no longer. 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Who the hell are you calling a villain, snot skin?" If looks could kill, then the green boy would have exploded from the glare. But to be fair, the other boy's glare wasn't lacking in malice either. "My name is not Scott Skin. It is 𝗬𝗲𝗄 Kai. But you may call my 𝗬𝗲𝗄." 𝗬𝗲𝗄 introduced himself. "Consider it an honor. I'll call you Dead." Bakugo charged at 𝗬𝗲𝗄 and unleashed an explosion at the boy's chest. "Gur!" 𝗬𝗲𝗄 growled and stood his ground, and slashed Bakugo's chest again, making another cut. "Ah!" Bakugo was surprised. No one had ever taken one of his explosions like that before. "So your gift is explosions?" 𝗬𝗲𝗄 looked down bitterly at his now burnt clothes. "The gods gifted you with such a versatile and potent ability, and yet you use it to torment others. Such blasphemy will not be forgiven." "Shut up." Bakugo was getting even angrier with each word that came out of 𝗬𝗲𝗄's mouth, and this time he unleashed a full-power explosion right at his face. "Gah!" 𝗬𝗲𝗄 shouted in pain as his face was enveloped in light and smoke. As the smoke covered 𝗬𝗲𝗄's face, Bakugo smirked, thinking he had won. Until, "Don't look so smug." 𝗬𝗲𝗄's face emerged from the smoke, and to the surprise of everyone else, he looked mostly unscathed barring a few slight burns on his face. And then, his body glowed white, and the burns healed themselves almost instantly. 𝗬𝗲𝗄 smirked with confidence. "My quirk is called Ki Control. It allows me to do many things. Such as turning my hand into a blade or healing my wounds. Tell me, do you still care to fight me? I don't give a sh what your quirk is. Mine is better." Bakugo shouted definitely, as he prepared to unleash another explosion at the boy, only to get hit by another blast to the face. "Ak! Deku!" 𝗬𝗲𝗄 looked behind him and saw Izuku standing up with his palm extended outward, ready to fight. "I'm not going to let you hurt any more people, Kaken," Izuku stated. 𝗬𝗲𝗄 looked at Izuku's determined gaze and found himself intrigued. "Ah, so you are a fellow warrior of the gods. Tell me, what is your name?" "Izuku. Midoriya Izuku." Izuku introduced himself. "Would you allow me to call you Izuku?" 𝗬𝗲𝗄 asked him politely. Sure." Izuku was a bit taken aback. People were rarely so polite with him. "Well then, Izuku, shall we send this villain on his way?" 𝗬𝗲𝗄 turned his attention back to Bakugo. "I'm not a villain. I'm gonna be the #1 hero," Bakugo stated angrily. "Heroes do not torment the innocent. A villain claiming to be a hero, they are the worst sinners of all." 𝗬𝗲𝗄 shouted out with equal amounts of anger. "He's right. Heroes don't hurt people, Kaken." Izuku agreed. "I don't care what you two shitheads have to say, die." Bakugo lunged at Izuku ready to attack him again, but 𝗬𝗲𝗄 moved in front of him and took the attack instead. 𝗬𝗲𝗄. Izuku charged up another blast for a few seconds, and let the energy explode at Katsuki's face. "Ah!" Bakugo held his face, the light from the blast stunning him for a moment. 𝗬𝗲𝗄 took advantage of this and kicked Bakugo in the face, knocking him to the floor. "How powerful can you make your energy blast?" 𝗬𝗲𝗄 asked Izuku. I don't know. I have to charge it," Izuku said. "Then make it as powerful as you can," 𝗬𝗲𝗄 said. "I will keep him from attacking you." "Like hell you are." Bakugo got back up and tried to attack 𝗬𝗲𝗄, but 𝗬𝗲𝗄 deflected the boy's arm, causing the explosion to miss. While 𝗬𝗲𝗄 kept Bakugo at bay, Izuku held his hands together over his head and charged up as much as he could. "Faster, faster. Izuku mentally instructed himself. A ball of ki gathered in his hands, glowing brighter and brighter as it gained more power. After about a few more minutes of fighting, 𝗬𝗪𝗂 managed to grab Bakugo and held him still. Let go, 𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏. Bakugo struggled, letting off explosions that hit nothing. Izuku, are you ready? 𝗬𝗪𝗂 asked. Almost. Izuku could feel the energy in his attack wanting to be released. Wait. This attack needs a name. I can't use a special attack without a name. After a few more moments, Izuku knew he couldn't hold it anymore. And so he said the first thing that came to his mind, something from an anime he had watched. 𝗵𝘃𝗃𝗁. Izuku shouted. A beam of light burst from Izuku's hands, and straight towards Bakugo. Bakugo could only watch, as the beam hit him right in the stomach. Wah! It felt like someone had thrown a rock really strong at his stomach, and also the rock was on fire. 𝗬𝗪𝗂, who was holding Bakugo, stood his ground as the beam pushed against them. The beam faded away and left Bakugo with a very upset stomach. 𝗬𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏. Bakugo growled. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 let him go, and Bakugo fell on his knees while clutching his stomach, trying not to vomit. I think he has been beaten enough, 𝗬𝗪𝗂 said while walking away. If we beat him any more, then that would just be attacking a helpless boy. F you. Bakugo tried to get up and attack them, but he found moving made his stomach turn even more. Let us inform you, teacher, of this, shall we? 𝗬𝗪𝗂 told Izuku. I don't know. I think he's had enough. Izuku was hesitant. Part of him still considered Kaken his friend after all. Nonsense. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 said. Does he seem like the type of person to give up just because he's been beaten? 𝗬𝗪𝗂 pointed at Bakugo, who was still spewing out profanities while trying not to spew out his lunch. Izuku didn't think of Bakugo as the kind of person to give up. So if he was doing something bad, he might not give up on that either. He must be punished. So he can repent for his actions. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 stated. Come. Show me to your teacher. Oh, okay. Izuku started walking, with 𝗬𝗪𝗂 following suit. You didn't win, Deku. You're running away. I would have kicked your butt if it was just you. You hear me? DKU. Bakugo shouted in outrage. Izuku looked back at him, a sad look on his face. But 𝗬𝗪𝗂 quickly turned his head forward. Don't listen to him, 𝗬𝗪𝗂 told him. And you said your name was Izuku. So why is he calling you Deku? It's an insult, Izuku admitted. Everyone calls me that. Ah yes, it means useless. Now I remember. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 glared angrily at nothing in particular. How disgusting. At this rate, the 𝗧𝗃𝗁 will destroy us all. 𝗧𝗃𝗁. Izuku titled his head in confusion. Allow me to enlighten you, 𝗬𝗪𝗂 said. And that was how the story started. A friendship that would last for years, and a rivalry that would last forever. But that would not be the only friend Izuku would make before middle school. A few months later. Hiya. Izuku punched 𝗬𝗪𝗂's hand, repeating the same motion he had been doing for over an hour now. No, you need to pour you ki through your body, let it strengthen you. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 encouraged him. Izuku back his fist, and it lit up with yellow ki, che. Izuku punched 𝗬𝗪𝗂's fist again, causing a very, very small explosion in 𝗬𝗪𝗂's palm. No, not like that. It's like charging a ki blast but inside you. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 sighed. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 made this sound so much better. The two had been practicing for almost 2 hours. Due to their similar quirks, Izuku had asked 𝗬𝗪𝗂 to teach him what he could about utilizing ki. They had decided to do this in the forest, as no one would object to them using their quirks there. Izuku stopped his practice to take a breath. He was sweating profusely due to using his quirk so much and he felt exhausted. This is strong. Indeed, most likely even more so for you as your body lacks my near-infinite stamina. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 sighed. But it is what we must do in order to reach greatness. In our mission to defend the weak from the filthy sinners that would hurt them, we must never cease our training. It is important that we dash. Before 𝗬𝗼𝗂 could continue on with what was no doubt another long-winded speech filled with words 𝗧𝗂𝗧 didn't understand, a loud yell was heard echoing through the forest. Ah! 𝗧𝗂𝗧 and 𝗬𝗼𝗂's head snapped towards the direction where the noise came from. Someone's in trouble. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 got to his feet and started running towards the sound of the cry, with 𝗬𝗼𝗂 following behind. After about a minute of running, the two reached the source of the noise. In another clearing, there was a girl facing against 3 boys. The boys had surrounded her and all 4 of them looked at least a little banged up, the girl most of all. She had black hair and pigtails and was wearing plain white overalls. Scaredy cats. You say I'm weak but you want to fight 3 versus 1. That's no fair. The girl shouted at them. Shut up you stupid freak. One of the boys tried to punch her, but the girl caught the punch and started beating on that boy, with the other 2 boys grabbing her trying to pull her off of him. We have to help her, 𝗧𝗂𝗧 told his friend. The 2 of them were hiding in the bushes so the boys and the girl had not noticed them yet. I know that, but how? 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 asked. The last time we fought against bullies my stupid grandfather grounded me. So we need to stop them without fighting. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 put his hand to his chin and started thinking. What if we scared them off instead? Do you have anything to scare them? 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 asked. Yeah. The sword. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 reminded him. But that thing is useless. 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 pointed out. But it doesn't look useless. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 counted. 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 thought about it for a moment. That might work, let's go. The 2 jumped out of the bushes, and 𝗧𝗂𝗧 shouted, hey. Suddenly all 4 of them stopped and looked to their left to see a determined 𝗧𝗂𝗧 and an angry 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧. Cease your actions, sinners. Or else the wrath of the God shall smite you where you stand. 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 shouted at the boys. There was a moment of silence as all the boys stared at him in confusion before one of them asked. What? Stop or we'll beat you up. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 simplified. The 3 boys glared at them. Go away. This quirkless freak punched me first. One of the boys said. Because you spat on my hair. The girl protested. Yeah, because you're quirkless. One of the other boys said. These comments seemed to make 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 even angrier, as his scowl tightened and he started moving towards the bullies, only for 𝗧𝗂𝗧 to grab him. Stop. You'll get in trouble, remember. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 reminded him, before stepping forward. Let me. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 raised his hand to the sky, as it became enveloped with yellow energy. Spirit Excalibur. Suddenly, a giant yellow energy sword burst from 𝗧𝗂𝗧's hand, easily towering over everyone in the area. The 3 bullies stood in awe of the sword, not noticing 𝗧𝗂𝗧 sweating heavily, straining to keep it together. And now leave. Oh, otherwise I'll cut you. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 threatened. It was an empty threat. In truth, the sword was all bark and no bite. He had made it when 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 tried to teach him how to make a key blade like his. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 put too much energy into the blade, causing this to happen. The sheer amount of ki needed to make it that big meant that it didn't have any actual power or stability behind it, so it would fall apart the minute it touched something. And of course, using that much energy was exhausting to 𝗧𝗂𝗧. However, the bullies didn't know this, and in the face of a giant laser sword, they decided to turn tail and run away, leaving only the girl. Graish. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 grunted as he dispelled the sword. He nearly collapsed from how tired he was, but 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 caught him before he could hit the floor. Thanks, 𝗧𝗂𝗧. 𝗧𝗂𝗧 thanked his friend. Ugh, how many times must I tell you to stop calling me that? 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 groaned at his nickname. Meanwhile, the girl picked herself up and dusted off her clothes before glaring at the 2 boys. I didn't need help. I'm not weak. 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 seemed shocked by her response for a moment, before quickly returning the glare. I believe you're supposed to say, thank you. Regardless of how strong you are, it was 3 against 1. I don't know 𝗧𝗂𝗧, Izuku told his friend, getting back to his feet. She was doing pretty well. That's because those three fought like idiots, 𝗬𝗲𝗄 explained. If they knew how to fight then you'd have been losing. But they didn't. Said both the girl and Izuku at the same time, causing the two to stare at each other for a moment. Humph. Well, at least your friend is smart. The black-haired girl said. My name's 𝗳𝗲𝗍𝗪. The world's soon-to-be first quirkless hero. The mention of the word, hero, seemed to put the energy back into Izuku, as he dashed towards the girl stopping right in front of her face. You want to be a hero too? Wait, your name, Satan. Like Mr. Satan. The wrestler. Yeah, he's my dad, 𝗳𝗲𝗍𝗪 explained, taken aback a little by his sudden enthusiasm. Cool. Izuku gushed. And you want to be a hero? Are you gonna use his moves? Like the dynamite kick? Or the rolling punch? Ugh, wrestling. 𝗬𝗲𝗄 groaned in disgust. 𝗳𝗲𝗍𝗪 glared at the green boy. What's wrong with wrestling? It's all fake, 𝗬𝗲𝗄 explained. No, it's not. 𝗳𝗲𝗍𝗪 argued, her face getting red with anger. Take that back. I will not take back the truth. 𝗬𝗲𝗄 crossed his arms stubbornly. It's fake and barbaric. I don't know what that means, but I know it's bad, so take it back. 𝗳𝗍𝗪 seemed ready to march up and punch 𝗬𝗲𝗄 in the face at any moment. But I like wrestling. Izuku pouted. 𝗬𝗲𝗄 looked at his friend and at 𝗳𝗲𝗪 and at Izuku, seeing that he upset both of them, and sighed while rolling his eyes. Fine. I will take it back. Even if I'm right. My name is 𝗬𝗲𝗄. And my name's Izuku Midoriya. Izuku introduced himself. Nice to meet you. 𝗳𝗲𝗪 was about to say something snarky when she suddenly realized something. Hey, you didn't call me stupid for saying I wanted to a quirkless hero. So far everyone but her dad had called her stupid or crazy for wanting to be a hero after being diagnosed as quirkless. But these two didn't. Izuku had even seemed excited about it. Why would we say something that mean? Izuku asked. Just because you're quirkless doesn't mean you can't be a hero, 𝗬𝗲𝗄 said firmly. Quirks are gifts given by the gods. If you don't have one, the gods don't think you need one to succeed. 𝗳𝗲𝗪 was taken aback by their response, completely unused to positive comments from anyone but her father. Why, you really think I can be a hero? Of course/yes. Izuku and 𝗬𝗲𝗄 said at the same time. 𝗳𝗲𝗪 paused for a moment before smiling at the two of them. Then I forgive you for calling wrestling fake. I think we can be great friends. 𝗬𝗲𝗄 looked at Izuku, who was smiling eagerly, and sighed. Well, I guess I have no choice. And thus the trio was born. What will happen next? Tune in next time on, to go even further beyond. That fight earlier was so cool. I wonder if I could learn techniques similar to those heroes. Midoriya. Well, I can already enhance my strength like death arms. It's not anywhere near as powerful, but I can do it. Midoriya. Could I use ki to make me bigger? I think I'd rip myself apart or explode if I tried. Midoriya. Maybe I could make ki constructs that could wrap around people and trap them. No, they wouldn't hold up very long. I'd be better off using solar flare. Deku. Shut the F up. Wah. Izuku snapped out of his thoughts and realized where he was. In the middle of class, with everyone staring at him. And Bakugo glaring at him like he wanted him dead. Wait, that was normal. Midoriya, please refrain from muttering. The teacher said in exasperation. And please pay attention. Sorry. Izuku's face went red from embarrassment after realizing he said all of that out loud. The teacher coughed to gain everyone's attention. As I was saying ring. The teacher sighed as the bell rang. Never mind, you're dismissed. With that, the students and the teacher all fled out of the room, leaving only Bakugo and Izuku behind. We're not done here, Deku. Bakugo walked up to Izuku's desk and exploded it a bit. Something Izuku was so used to that he didn't even flinch. Actually Kaken, I have training soon so I need to leave as soon as possible. Izuku tried to reason with his friend, but he saw he wasn't in the letting him go mood. Nor was he ever. You're not going anywhere, Deku. Why the hell are you applying for you, eh? Bakugo barked at him as Izuku backed towards the window. I'm the only one from this piece of SHT school getting into you, eh? Don't you dare mess up my origin story. You know that's not how it works, Kaken. Izuku lightly scolded his friend while he backed up to the window's ledge. You need to be less selfish, Kaken. It'll help you in the future. Anyway, I gotta go. Bye. Suddenly Izuku jumped out the window and put both his hands down. Double Sunday. Two beams came from Izuku's hands, hitting the ground and slowing his fall. After a few seconds, he reached the ground and dissipated the beams, before running away from the school. DKU. Get back here. Bakugo shouted from the window. Sorry Kaken, but Whis-sensei would be very mad if I'm late. Izuku shouted to the 𝗧𝗵𝗲𝗄 boy. I'll fight you later. I promise. Izuku kept running until he reached the gates, where Zamasu and Videl were waiting for him. About time you got here, Videl said as they all started walking. We're gonna be late. Sorry. Kaken held me up. Izuku apologized. Ugh. Did that brute challenge you to yet another fight? Zamasu asked him. No, he tried to tell me not to apply to you, Izuku explained. Again. Ugh, can't we just beat the CRP out of him or something? Videl groaned. Zakon, you're mega rich. Make him disappear. Zamasu rolled his eyes. Despite what the media would have you believe, that is not how the wealthy handle things. Grandfather may be old and senile, but he's not evil. You really shouldn't talk about Gawasu like that. He may not want you to be a hero, but he's still helping you do it. Izuku said. Easy to say when you don't have to live with him, Zamasu replied. How about you stay in my house for a year and listen to his passive-aggressive comments in his condescending voice, and we'll see how your view of him holds. Considering he still calls Bakugo a friend, I don't think that will do much. Videl laughed. And I already know what it's like to have people like that. It's called literally everyone. In my life. Except they're less passive-aggressive and more just aggressive. Zamasu gave her a pitiful look. Are those discriminatory sinners still verbally assaulting you? What do you think? Videl replied, as they all knew the answer was yes. Don't worry. Once you get into you, no one will question if you can be a hero or not. Izuku reassured her. Videl sighed. Honestly, I'm not even sure I can get in. Apparently, I have to fight freaking robots. How am I supposed to fight robots? Izuku and Zamasu didn't respond. They couldn't just tell her to punch through robots. Even if she could, which depending on how strong the robots were, she could do. That would likely hurt her hands to the point where she would break them before getting enough points. U.A.'s entrance exam is very flawed, but look on the bright side, you could always get in by performing well in the Tournament of Power, Zamasu suggested. Do not give up. It's not like you. Videl sighed. Yeah, I know, it's just I wish I could hear someone other than my dad and you two say I could do it. Someone with, experience. Like an actual hero. As the three of them walked past a bridge, suddenly, a manhole cover slid off. All three of them stopped at the sound of the cover sliding against the street and turned to see what was making the sound. Suddenly a green sludge climbed out of the sewer, growing and growing until it towered over the trio. And then a face, a mouth, and two eyes emerged. Two eyes were looking right at them. Ah, 3 invisibility cloaks. I only need one. The sludge man said, before looking right at Izuku. Ah, that one will do. The villain dove at Izuku, but Izuku managed to jump back and avoid the villain's lunge. A villain. Videl shouted. And a disgusting one at that. 𝗳𝗵𝗃 glared at the sludge man. Ah! Stop dodging! The villain shouted as he extended and tended towards 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏, wrapping it around his foot. Ah! 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 fell down and the villain started dragging him towards him. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 gathered up ki in his hand, and formed a ki blade. It was a bit longer and a bit less powerful than 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧, but it would do. Hopefully. He cut the tendril off of him, freeing him from the villain's grasp. Stop fighting back! The villain yelled as it sent out all of itself towards 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 tried to dodge but he didn't make it in time, and the slime villain wrapped itself around him. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏! Cried 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧 and 𝗣𝗲𝗏 as they ran toward the villain. Don't worry, this won't hurt for long. The slime villain's tendrils went towards 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏's face, ready to crawl inside him. Ha! Ha! 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 shouted at the top of his lungs, in a fit of desperation, used a full-power ki burst. A ki burst was a pressurized force pushed out of the body on all sides using ki. It didn't do much damage, but it was great for pushing people off of you. The villain's slimy body was pushed back, and off of 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 for a moment. However, this only bought 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 a few seconds, as the villain quickly grabbed 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 once more. You little brat, just die already. The villain was getting annoyed. This wasn't supposed to take this long. Ah! 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 screamed as he fired off another full-power ki burst, pushing the villain off of him for a few seconds. Damn it, I can't keep doing this. If I keep using that much power I'll use up all my stamina. But if I don't, then I can't keep him off of me. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 thought as he kept using ki burst. Meanwhile, 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧 and 𝗣𝗲𝗏 were doing what they could to try and free him. With 𝗣𝗲𝗏 trying to grab onto the villain and 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧 trying to cut him, but neither of them were doing anything. Damn it, this isn't working. 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧 thought as he kept trying to stop the villain. If this keeps up, 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏's going to die. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 was quickly running out of stamina, and his last ki burst wasn't as powerful as the others, and his next one after that was even weaker, not pushing the villain away at all. End of the line, kid. The villain said, as he finally prepared to take 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏's body. And then. Never fear. Why? Because I am here. Everyone froze, as they heard that ever so familiar voice. Before they could even look in the direction of the voice, something dashed through the slime villain and grabbed 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏, 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧, and 𝗣𝗲𝗏. The three blinked in shock, as they had been moved away from the villain so fast, that they didn't even see it. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 was the most shocked because he was free, and in the arms of the number one hero, his hero. All Might. Ahahaha. All Might laughed as he placed down the stunned 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏. Don't worry, citizens. I have come at last. All Might. Shouted all three kids at once. That's right. All Might's smile glowed in the sunlight. Sorry that you three got caught up in the chase. But thank you for keeping the villain in place. Now. All Might turned around and saw that the villain was once again attempting to flee. But it was in vain. Texas. All Might pp back his fist. Smash. All Might punched the air, causing a massive blast of air to rush towards the villain, hitting him dead on, and splattering him across the tunnel. As the winds died down, the trio stood in shock and awe of All Might's power. I've seen it on TV, 𝗣𝗲𝗏 thought. But in person, that power is unreal. Truly this man must be loved by the gods. 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏 thought. So cool. All Might is the best. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 said out loud. Aha! All Might laughed, before pulling out 2 bottles. Now to capture him. All three of them looked at him in confusion. Ha! Sometime later. And done. All Might's smile gleamed as he held up the 2 bottles containing the captured villain. All Might. 𝗣𝗲𝗏 spoke up. Are you sure that will contain him? 𝗳𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗏 asked. Of course I am. All Might said, putting the bottles in his pockets. All Might, it is such an honor to meet you. I'm your biggest fan. Can I have your autograph? 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 said without taking a breath and brought out one of his notebooks. Of course. All Might picked it up and signed it with practiced speed. Here you go. Wow. Izuku took the notebook and looked at it like it was the most amazing thing in the world. I'll cherish it forever. It'll be a family heirloom. All Might, it truly is an honor to meet a man such as yourself, 𝗬𝗵𝗃 said. You do the God's work. You are so cool. Videl gushed. Well, thank you all for your kind words. I couldn't do this without your support. All Might said his rehearsed lines, as he prepared to leap away. Now, if you excuse me, I have to get this villain to a police station. As All Might was preparing to leap away, Izuku suddenly remembered something. I wish I could hear someone other than my dad and you two say I could do it. Someone with, experience. Like an actual hero. Videl's words echoed in his mind, and he reached out to stop All Might. Just as he grabbed onto him, All Might leaped. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and Videl blinked in pure disbelief. Did Izuku just? Videl asked. Grab onto All Might as he leaped into the sky. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 responded. Yes. I believe he did. Meanwhile, All Might had just noticed Izuku attached to his breathe leg as well. What the hell are you doing, kid? This enthusiasm is a bit too much. All Might told as he tried to shake him off. Let go. Wait. I don't have enough energy left to slow my fall. If I let go, I'll almost definitely die. Izuku pointed out. Oh right. All Might stopped trying to shake him off. Well, hold on. And close your eyes and mouth. I'm going to land on the nearest building. Okay. Izuku did as instructed. As All Might looked for a place to land, blood seeped from his mouth. 𝗧𝗵𝗃. A few moments later. After landing on a nearby rooftop, Izuku took a moment to recover from his impromptu human roller coaster ride. That was a dumb idea, kid, you could have gotten yourself seriously hurt. All Might scolded him. Now wait here. Someone should come and get you eventually. Wait. Izuku called out to him. I have a really important question to ask you. I'm sorry, I don't have time. Steam was coming off of All Might, he needed to get out of here before his cover was blown. Can a quirkless person be a hero? Izuku asked him. All Might froze. What? Ah, you see my friend back there, Videl. She's quirkless and she wants to be a hero. Right now she's kind of doubting herself, so I'd really like it if you 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗍 her. Izuku slowed down his speech as he noticed more and more steam coming off of All Might. All Might. 𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗧𝗧, 𝗧𝗧𝗧, 𝗧𝗧𝗧, 𝗧𝗧𝗧. All Might thought as the steam covered him, and he started to shrink. CRP. CRP. In a matter of moments, the steam cleared, and All Might was reduced to a skeleton-like man. An imposter. Izuku was confused. What happened to All Might? Who is this? I am 𝗵𝗃𝗄. All Might tried to tell him before spitting up blood. Oh my god, are you okay? Izuku asked the clearly injured man. All Might sighed. One explanation later. And now I can only be the symbol of peace for 3 hours a day. All Might explained after showing his wound. Izuku was, once again, stunned. Wow. I can't believe it. Some villains are that strong. Strong enough to hurt All Might like this. Right. All Might said. And that's why I can't in good conscience say that your friend can be a hero. I'm sorry. There was a long pause between the two. All Might was about to suggest that he advise his friend to become a police officer, but Izuku spoke first. I think you're wrong, Izuku said simply. All Might gave the boy a surprised look. He had thought he might defend his friend. But he expected him to be more passionate about it. Angry or sad or something. Instead, it was like he was stating a fact or presenting an argument. I mean, I don't think she could take down people like Toxic Chainsaw. But not all villains are that strong. Izuku stated. Most of them aren't. Maybe she can't take down big S-rank villains who are threatening to destroy the city, but she could take D or C or maybe even be ranked villains who just try to kill people. That is true. And you make a good point. All Might admitted. But still, a villain like 𝗳𝗪𝗁𝗀 could attack at any time. And a hero must always respond to a villain attack. In that situation, I can't see how a quirkless hero could help. What about evacuating civilians? Izuku asked. Oh, or spotting a villain's weak points. Or tending to injured heroes. Or maybe forming a plan to defeat the villain. Or... Izuku looked like he was about to continue when he suddenly had an epiphany. I think, I know the problem here, Izuku said. You're thinking like how I used to think. Flashback, 8 years ago. At the Kai training grounds. Ha! Izuku shouted as he fired off a huge blast of ki at a dummy. The blue blast covered the dummy entirely, and when the blast died down, the dummy was mostly destroyed. Izuku was exhausted, heavily just trying to get oxygen into his lungs as his legs tried to not to collapse. I think I see the problem here. Izuku looked up at his mentor, 𝗧𝗪-sensei. Problem? Izuku asked. Yes, Izuku. The problem. 𝗧 said. In the time it would have taken you to charge that blast, that dummy, if it were a real villain, would have killed you tenfold. And even if he didn't, the other dummies, had they been real villains, would have killed you in your exposed state. Izuku sulked. But then what do I do? That's the only way I can take him out in one blast. And that's the problem. You're trying to overpower your opponents despite your obvious lack of power. 𝗧 pointed out. Tell me, Izuku, what kind of hero do you want to be? I want to be like All Might. Izuku answered immediately. Exactly, 𝗧 said. That's exactly the issue. You're trying to imitate All Might. But Izuku, you're not All Might, nor will you ever be. Izuku wilted heavily at that comment. All his life he wanted to be like All Might, so hearing he couldn't it was very disheartening. But that doesn't mean you can't become the #1 hero, 𝗧 said, making Izuku perk up a bit. But you can't do it in the same way that All Might does. You can't punch so strong the clouds part from the sky, you can't run faster than a rocket, and you can't get hit by a collapsing building and get up just fine. If you want to succeed, you'll have to rely on what you can do. Use the versatility of your ki manipulation to make up for the lack of power. 𝗧 turned his attention back towards the dummies. In this situation, it would have been better to let out a barrage of smaller ki blasts, allowing you to get in close and take them out with your fist. It's not as flashy or impressive as All Might, but it is effective, and it is within your capabilities. Izuku looked at the dummies, before looking down at his hands, and feeling the ki flowing through him. He realized 𝗧 was right. After just one big blast he could barely fight. If he wanted to be the #1 hero, he had to be smarter about how he used his energy. Yes, sensei. Izuku said. I understand. 𝗧 smiled. Very good. Now, let's take a break. Can't train on an empty stomach, can we? Back to the present. I want to be the #1 hero. Just like you. I want people to see my shining smile, and feel safe. Izuku explained. My quirk lets me manipulate ki, but it's pretty weak. But I still tried to copy you when I was a kid, and it didn't turn out well. But 𝗧-sensei me that power isn't everything. That's why I think that even if she can't do what do, I think she can still be a hero. And do what she can. All Might paused, thinking over what the young man said. Is that true? Had I become so blinded by power that I forgot how capable people can be? There was a long pause as All Might thought it over, and Izuku waited for his response. Perhaps. All Might eventually said. You're right. Maybe a quirkless hero is possible. Izuku perked up and smiled brightly. Really? You think you could tell her that? All Might looked at him. What's your name? Izuku Midoriya. Izuku answered. Do you think you could tell 𝗲𝗏𝗍 she can be a hero? Maybe some other time. All Might said as he turned to leave. For now I need to get this villain to the dash. All Might froze as he felt his pockets, trying to grab the bottle the villain was being held in. Only to find it wasn't there. Kaboom! An explosion went off in the distance, and 𝗧𝗑𝗧 and All Might fought the same thing. Oh no! A few minutes later. Both All Might and 𝗧𝗑𝗧 struggled for breath as they ran right towards the source of the explosion. The sludge villain had gotten free and had taken another hostage. 𝗵𝘃𝗲. The spiky-haired boy was trying to free himself by wildly letting off explosions, but all that did was set the surrounding area on fire. The heroes were already on the scene. But they were struggling to stop the crisis. Some were trying to stop and rescue people from the fire, while others were looking up at the villain, their quirks powerless to do anything against its liquid body. Him. But how? All Might wait. Dread coursed through 𝗧𝗑𝗧, as the realization of what he had done sunk in. The bottles must have fallen out of All Might's pockets when I grabbed him. All 𝗬𝗧𝗵𝗲 my fault. After a quick round of shaming himself, he looked around. All the heroes were standing by, waiting for backup that might take too long to come. And All Might was looking at the whole mess with fear and dread in his eyes, while he clutched his injury. He'd used up all his time for the day. The situation was clear, and 𝗧𝗑𝗧 knew what he had to do. Me. 𝗧𝗑𝗧 brought his hands back and started charging up energy as a blue ball of ki floated between his palms. Me. 𝗧𝗑𝗧 rushed through the crowd, bursting into the combat zone and rushing past the heroes. He pumped ki through his body, using a technique known as Spirit Body Boost. This technique made the user physically stronger, faster, and more durable, by using ki to enhance themselves. It was a rather easy-to-use technique that wasn't very taxing once the user got used to it, but even still with the amount of energy 𝗧𝗑𝗧 used earlier, it was difficult to maintain right now. Hey kid, stop, shouted the heroes. Someone stop him, shouted one of the civilians. But not one moved to halt his progress towards the villain. Me. 𝗧𝗑𝗧 felt his heartbeat fast, sweat poured down his face. He had already used so much energy today. And now he was pouring the last of his power into one attack. Gah! This brat! The sludge villain saw 𝗧𝗑𝗧 coming at him. Die! The villain sent out one of his tendrils at 𝗧𝗑𝗧, intent on killing him. 𝗧𝗑𝗧 stopped and brought his hands out in front of him, bringing his palms together, aiming the ball of ki at the villain. The ball of ki burst out into a beam, hitting the villain's attack head-on, and destroying its tendril in an instant. The beam pushed on through and headed right towards the villain's face. Wah! Ah! The villain shouted in pain as he got a face full of ki, burning his eyes and mouth while at the same time pushing him back. The villain's grip on 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏 weakened, which didn't go unnoticed by the blonde. 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏 exploded the villain's body off his arms, before exploding his own face, destroying the sludge that had been drowning him. Katsuki took a deep breath, as he finally got air into his lungs. 𝗧𝗑𝗧, meanwhile, had run out of energy. The Kamehameha dissipated, and the monkey-tailed teen fell to the ground. At least I bought him a little time. 𝗧𝗑𝗧 thought as black spots formed in his vision. 𝗬𝗵𝗃𝗍 Deku! 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏 shouted. I didn't need your help. Kaboom! 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏 exploded the sludge around him, finally blasting the villain off of him. He fell to the ground on his knees. His arms hurt from all the panicked explosions he'd been letting off. And he was tired from all the thrashing around. The villain, however, recovered quickly, reforming himself and looming over the two tired teens. You kids! Why won't you just die? The villain lunged at them once, more intent on taking 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏 and killing 𝗧𝗑𝗧. But All Might had other plans. His mouth blasting out BLD, All Might charged in and grabbed the two of them, putting them behind him. Detroit! All Might shouted as he back his fist, putting every last bit of power he had left into his fist. All Might! The sludge villain shouted out in rage. Smash! All Might shouted. The hero uppercut the villain, causing a powerful whirlwind to form, blasting the villain apart and throwing him into the sky, immediately rendering him unconscious. When the winds died down, pieces of the villain fell down like raindrops. All Might heard the crowd cheer, but his attention was focused on 𝗧𝗵𝗲. Thank you. All Might was out of time. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 smiled exhaustedly. He must have pushed himself. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 really is the greatest hero. And with that, he fell into unconsciousness. Sometime later. The next time 𝗧𝗵𝗲 woke up would be in the hospital. The key exhaustion had caused him to pass out, knocking him out for about a day and a half. His mother had of course been the first one to see him. She cried, reassured, and scolded him all at the same time. Apparently, All Might had asked he be pardoned from any vigilante accusations so at least there wouldn't be any consequences for his actions. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 and 𝗣𝗲𝗍 of course came and scolded him as well, both being very thankful that he was alive. 𝗬𝗏 had surprisingly also come to visit him, of course admonishing him for his actions while also praising him for aiming at the villain's one true weak spot. And even more surprisingly, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 had visited him. It was a short visit that consisted mostly of him belittling and insulting 𝗧𝗵𝗲 like normal, but he did at least tell him to get better. He told him to get better so he could beat the SHT out of him, but still, it was one of the nicer things he'd said to him in recent times. And his insults lacked their usual bite. However, none of those surprises would compare the one he got a few hours before he was discharged. As 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was sitting in his hospital bed, waiting for the doctor to come and tell him he could leave. But when the door opened, it wasn't the doctor that came in. It was All Might. In his skinny form. 𝗬𝗏𝗵𝗃𝗏. Before 𝗧𝗵𝗲 could finish his sentence, All Might shushed him. Keep it down. My identity is a secret, remember? All Might reminded him. Alright. Sorry. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 apologized. Just call me Mr. Yagi for now. All Might saw 𝗧𝗵𝗲's mouth open. Yes, that is my real last name. I know All Might's last name, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 whispered in awe with eyes as wide as dinner plates. So cool. All Might shook his head, smiling amusedly at the fanboy's enthusiasm, before remembering what he was here for. Young 𝗵𝗃𝗲. I came here to thank you. Just when All Might thought 𝗧𝗵𝗲 couldn't look any more bewildered, he proved his wrong. Me? Why you came here to thank me? That's right. All Might nodded. When you rushed in, it inspired me, young 𝗵𝗃𝗲. Seeing someone who had nearly exhausted themselves already, run in without a second thought and push themselves past their limit to save someone. It reminded me why I became a hero. And pushed me to do the same. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was speechless. All Might was complimenting him. The All Might. But I am the one who freed him. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 tried to compose himself the best he could. It was my fault. All Might shook his head. No. If anything, it was my fault. I shouldn't have tried to hold him in such a flimsy plastic bottle. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 was speechless once again. He still couldn't believe his ears. There was nothing that could make this even more unbelievable. Your actions there, and your words on the rooftop have convinced me. All Might looked at him eye to eye. 𝗧𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗏. You are worthy of inheriting my quirk. Never mind. It could get more unbelievable. What would happen next? How will 𝗧𝗵𝗲 handle being the successor to All Might himself? And how will this new power affect 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and his quirk? Find out next time. On to go even further beyond. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 stared at the gates of you, with the wonder and awe you'd expect from a child. We're really here, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 whispered in amazement. We're at you, for now. We still actually have to pass the test first. 𝗣𝗲𝗍 reminded him. Which we can't do if you spend all day marveling at the gate. Yes, we had best not be late. A first impression is a long-lasting one. 𝗬𝗵𝗲 told him, as all three of them walked in. I know, but it's just we've spent our entire lives preparing for today, 𝗧𝗵𝗲 said. And it's here. It's finally here. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 had been so in the moment and so not paying attention, he tripped as he was walking. Before he could fall face first onto the floor, however, he suddenly just stopped. In midair. Ha! 𝗧𝗵𝗃 blinked in confusion. He felt weightless. Like gravity just stopped working on him. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 and 𝗣𝗲𝗍 were also confused for a moment, before looking behind them to see a brown-haired girl standing there. Sorry, I used my quirk without asking. The girl said, moving 𝗧𝗵𝗃 upright and then tapping her finger together, releasing him from the effects of her quirk. I thought I'd be bad luck if you tripped and fell. Oh, it's fine. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 said, his face turning a little red. Thanks for stopping me from tripping. Yes, it was most kind of you. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 praised the girl. May I ask your name? It's 𝗬𝗧𝗏. 𝗧𝗏𝗄 𝗬𝗧𝗏. She introduced herself. My name is 𝗬𝗪𝗬. Please call me 𝗬𝗪𝗬. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 turned to his friends. The girl over there is 𝗣𝗲𝗍 and the airhead you stopped from falling is 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Hey! 𝗧𝗵𝗃 whined. Their antics causing 𝗧𝗏𝗄 to giggle a little. Thanks for keeping Monkey Boy from falling, but we should all probably get going now, 𝗣𝗲𝗍 said. Ah, you're right. Hope you pass. 𝗧𝗏𝗄 said as she waved them goodbye. Same to you. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 called out. Once 𝗧𝗏𝗄 was gone, 𝗬𝗪𝗬 and 𝗣𝗲𝗍 turned to 𝗧𝗵𝗃. Mind telling us why you turned into a blushing mess there, pal? 𝗣𝗲𝗍 teased. Yes, I know you can be rather shy at times, but that was almost pathetic, 𝗬𝗪𝗬 said. I am just not used to talking to girls besides 𝗣𝗲𝗍. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 corrected himself. Well, that explains it, he's spent so long with you 𝗣𝗲𝗍 that he's forgotten what attractive girls look like. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 ribbed with his 𝗧𝗃𝗃 cocky smirk. 𝗣𝗲𝗍 rolled her eyes. I'd be so offended if I gave a 𝗧𝗃. The three stopped their banter, as they arrived at the building. It loomed over them, reminding them that today would change their lives. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 looked at his two friends, both nervous, and put his hands on their shoulders. We will succeed. The two looked at him for a moment, before nodding. The fear in their eyes was replaced with pure determination. Right. Sometime later. The written exam went smoothly. WhatIf had taught them the importance of strengthening the mind as well as the body, and had made them spend many afternoons studying. So they were more than prepared for it. Now they were entering the auditorium, all three sitting next to each other listening to Present Mike explain the exam. Oh my god, it's Present Mike. 𝗧𝗃𝗃 had immediately gone into a muttering storm when he saw the hero. Shut up, Deku. Bakugo, who was sitting next to them as well, growled at him. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 and 𝗣𝗲𝗍 simply ignored it, as they were too used to 𝗧𝗃𝗃's muttering to care. That was not the case for everyone, however. A blue-haired boy suddenly raised his hand and started questioning what the hero had been saying due to a perceived error. And once he was done with that, he called out 𝗧𝗃𝗃. You there, with the tail. You've been muttering this entire time. It is very distracting. If you are not going to take this seriously, then leave. The boy told 𝗧𝗃𝗃. 𝗧𝗃𝗃 just blushed, embarrassed at having been called out, and muttered some apologies. His friends, on the other hand, did not take this so lightly. Excuse me, but his muttering is barely even audible. If you were truly paying attention, you should not have even heard it from where you're sitting. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 scowled at the boy. And also, what right do you have to yell about distraction? You're the one stopping Present Mike from explaining the rest of the exam, and you have the gall to question your elders in such a disrespectful fashion. If you truly wish for there to be no distractions, then sit down, stop thinking you know better than the professionals, and stop bringing attention to such minor things. The boy recoiled back as if 𝗬𝗪𝗬's words had physically hit him. However, he realized that he was right. Right now he was the biggest dictation to everyone. No. He's right. Deku's muttering is annoying and he should shut the F up. Bakugo shouted at 𝗬𝗪𝗬. The green boy turned his attention to his most hated rival. Of course you would say that. You find his very existence as infuriating as I find yours repulsive. The F did you say, snot face? Bakugo growled at 𝗬𝗪𝗂, letting explosions dance on his plans for intimidation. Do not use your quirk in here. And tone down your language. The boy suddenly shouted at Bakugo, chopping the air fiercely. Ha! I'm defending you, but... Bakugo shouted at the boy. As if anyone would want to be defended by you. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 laughed at Bakugo. That is why you would be such a terrible hero. At the first sight of you, people would start to flee towards the villain in fear. And in all honesty, the villain would probably do a better job protecting them. And would probably be nicer to look at too. 𝗲𝗍𝗿 joined in, I'll F kill you, snot face. You too, you useless beach. Bakugo seemed ready to lunge at 𝗬𝗪𝗂. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 and 𝗲𝗿 seemed almost just as ready to fight. I'd like to see you try, blasphemer. There will be no fighting here. The boy shouted. Everybody shut up. Present Mike shouted, using his quirk a little to really silence everyone else. Once the room had fully fallen silent and attention was back on him, Mike continued. You four. Sit down and shut up before I kick you all out. The three boys and 𝗲𝗿 looked at each other for a moment, before begrudging sitting back down. Allowing Present Mike to continue his explanation. Sometime later. You shouldn't have done that, 𝗧𝗂𝗏. Izuku scolded his friend. The two of them were now waiting with the other students for the test to begin. 𝗲𝗿 was in a separate testing area away from the two of them. I let my anger take hold of me. For that, I will apologize. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 said. That boy simply infuriates me. I pray to the gods he does not pass. 𝗧𝗂𝗏. If you keep saying angry, spiteful things like that, then you'll end up just like Kaken. And then you'll make someone else angry and spiteful, and they'll end up like Kaken too. It'll be an infinite cycle of Kakens. Izuku joked. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 grimaced. I don't know what disgusts me more. The idea of becoming like the mongrel or the thought of there being more than one of him. As the two bantered, they spotted Ochako warming herself up. My, what a coincidence. It's that girl you're so fond of. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 teased, causing Izuku to turn red. You should talk to her. Wah. But she looks like she's trying to concentrate. Izuku pointed out. Izuku, the tension in here is absolutely palpable. I could cut it with my key. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 said. I'm sure she wouldn't mind the conversation, if only for the sake of relieving the stress. And gods know you could use more friends. Especially if 𝗲𝗿 does not make it in. Izuku looked at 𝗬𝗪𝗂 with a mix of shock and slight betrayal. As if even implying 𝗲𝗿 might fail was treason to their friendship. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 returned Izuku's expression with his own, saddened one. Izuku. We must face the facts. 𝗲𝗿's only saving grace is her skill. And this is not a test of skill. This is a test of speed and power. Two things that 𝗲𝗿 lacks in comparison to those with quirks. I believe she could destroy a few robots. But not enough. And we also must consider the competition. Is the best hero school in the world. So the best of the best are going to try and pass as well. In the end, we must concede that 𝗲𝗿's chances here are low. Very low. Izuku frowned, looking at the floor frustratedly. That's not fair. It's not. UAS entrance exam is practically rigged against those whose quirks are non-conventionally heroic. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 scowled. It is something has gotten much criticism for. That's why students outside the hero course are allowed to compete in the tournament of power, and possibly become part of the hero course that way. Right now there is nothing we can do about it. There was a small pause as an air of sadness hung over the two before 𝗬𝗪𝗂 eventually spoke again. Speak to the girl, you need friends. I'm not sure that's a good idea, Izuku responded nervously. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 scoffed. You really should learn no to question me. Especially considering how grateful you should be that I refused a recommendation so we could do this test together. Actually, I have a question about that. How did you know we'd be in the same testing area for us to work together? 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 asked. Simple. We know that you separates people from the same school into different zones, which is why 𝗲𝗏𝗿 is not here as she went to your school. However, seeing as I went to a different school, this does not affect me. And given that these tests take place in fake cities and are extremely large, they can only have a small number of separate testing zones. Meaning that the odds of us being in the same area are high. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 explained. But what if we didn't get put in the same area? 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 asked. Well, then this test would have gotten far more tedious, 𝗬𝗼𝗂 replied. After all, I'm guaranteed to pass with flying colors. And I have faith you would not fail. Now about you too, shouted a familiar voice. The two looked and saw the blue-haired boy from earlier staring at them. Ugh! By Zeno, you're here too. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 glared at him. The gods must be punishing me for my outburst earlier. I heard you two were planning on working together. The boy chopped the air as he spoke. That is against the rules. If you do not desist in your cheating, that I will inform the teachers. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 laughed. Ha! It appears you are as simple-minded as you first seemed. That is a mere misconception. If you had actually paid attention while President Mike was speaking and not looking for flaws to call out to make yourself seem smarter, then you would have noticed that he never said working together wasn't allowed. You simply made it very, very difficult. Firstly, be separating people from the same schools, meaning it's unlikely anyone would be around someone they are acquainted with. And secondly, by making it so only the person who destroyed the robot gets the points. By doing that, it means that each person working together has to be aware of how much points they are both getting and assures that one person cannot ride off the success of another. Under these conditions, a partnership would be detrimental, if the people participating in said partnership could equally pull their own weight, and work well together. And lastly, if after the test you get in and they find you can't perform well without someone assisting you at all time, you will simply be expelled. The boys seemed shocked by this revelation, as did more than a few of the people around them. Well then _NGO. President Mick's voice suddenly rang over the speakers and the doors opened up to the testing site, signaling the start of the test. What were you expecting, a countdown? There are no countdowns in real life. Now go. With that, everyone rushed out, and with their enhanced speed managed to get past most of the others. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 and 𝗬𝗼𝗂 rushed through the fake city, quickly spotting some villain bots, a 2-pointer, and a 3-pointer. I'll go for the 3-pointer, you go for the 2-pointer, 𝗬𝗼𝗂 said with 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 nodding in response. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 ran towards and the scorpion-like robot, he jumped it while forming a key blade in his hand, before cutting through the robot's neck and lopping off its head. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 charged at the 3-pointer and stabbed it in the head with his key blade. Boom! 𝗬𝗼𝗂 surged key through his hand, and let it explode inside of the 3-pointer, destroying most of its head. While 𝗬𝗼𝗂 couldn't shoot key blasts like 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏, but he could gather up key in his hand, and let it explode out in a burst of power. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 removed his hand from the robot's remains and the two continued to run through the city. They found 3 1-point robots roaming through, and 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 sent out a few weak key blasts to get their attention. This worked, the key blast bounced off the robots, not doing much of anything to them, but getting them to focus on the pair. The 3 robots charged at the 2 of them, only for 2 of the robots to get cut down by 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧's key blade as he zoomed past them. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 kicked the last robot towards 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏, not leaving it mostly intact so 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 could get the point. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏 pointed 2 fingers at the robot and shouted, Dodon Ray. A very small beam of ki shot out of 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏's fingers and tore right through the robot's torso. The Dodon Ray was a technique designed to make up for 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏's lack of power. With a small, more focused beam, he could pierce through his enemies. With those robots destroyed, the two moved on. As they continued, they lucked out and found 2 3-pointers, a 2-pointer, and a 1-pointer gathered around an injured kid. 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗏, take them all out. I will gather their attention. 𝗬𝗼𝗂𝗧 ordered, charging towards the robots. You! Look upon your better and come before me. 𝗬𝗪𝗍's words had successfully gained the attention of the robots, who all started moving towards him. Izuku brought his hands back and started charging up energy. Ka. Me. Ha. Me. As 𝗬𝗪𝗍 and the robots got closer, 𝗬𝗪𝗍 leaped at the two-pointed, cutting off its head before leap off its body into the air. Now! Ha! Izuku shouted as he released his attack out at the three remaining robots. The three villain bots were consumed, the beam, but while it was hurting them, it didn't seem to be enough. I must not have put enough power into it. Izuku thought. I have no choice. I have to use it. Izuku took a deep breath and did as All Might instructed. Activating One for All. Suddenly a red aura burst out of Izuku's body as he shouted, Kaioken. Flashback, months prior. All Might and Izuku stood in the forest together. All Might had wanted to train on a trash-filled beach, however, it had already been cleaned up, and as a result, there were now too many people there. Alright, now that you have One for All, the first step is simply turning it on. All Might explained. Simply reach deep inside you, clench your buttocks, and yell smash. Izuku nodded and tried to do as All Might instructed. I can feel it. Izuku could feel the power bursting within him. He punched the air and said, Detroit Smash. Boom. An explosion of force, ki, and wind filled the area, as All Might had to go buff just to avoid getting blown away. When the explosion died down, All Might looked at his student. Alright, next let's try Resty Dash. All Might stopped as he saw Izuku laying on the ground, passed out and with a very broken arm. SHT, a few months after that. After a lengthy hospital stay, Izuku was now training with 𝗬𝗪𝗍, 𝗬𝗪𝗍, and 𝗤𝗍 once again. But he was still very frustrated at his failure to use One for All. Izuku! 𝗬𝗪𝗍 stopped him. There is something bothering you. Izuku froze. You hits nothing. Now. You should know better than to lie to your teacher. 𝗬𝗪𝗍 scolded. Now what is it? Izuku paused to wonder if he should tell him. All Might said not to tell anyone about One for All. But they're gonna find out eventually. And 𝗬𝗪𝗍-sensei might be able to help. Well, I found out something new about my quirk. Izuku lied. I found out that I actually do have a lot of power, it's just separate from my ki. Power separate from ki. 𝗬𝗪𝗍 looked skeptical, but Izuku hoped he would buy it. I see. Do you remember that giant explosion that happened in the forest a while ago? Izuku asked. Of course. An enormous explosion happened in the middle of the forest, it was so big people could see it from miles away. And yet no one knows who or what caused it. 𝗬𝗪𝗍 explained. Yeah, that was me, Izuku said sheepishly. What? 𝗬𝗪𝗍 and 𝗤𝗍 stopped what they were doing, in favor of looking at Izuku with wide disbelieving eyes. Oh my! Are you telling me that massive explosion was caused by your newfound power? 𝗬𝗪𝗍 also seemed a bit surprised but far less than the other two. Yes, Izuku confirmed. That's incredible. 𝗬𝗪𝗍 said. I thought that some of that blast may have been ki, but to think that you were the one responsible, it seems the gods have acknowledged your efforts. Bakugo is gonna be so mad when he finds out. 𝗤𝗍 smirked. Wait, this doesn't have anything to with you know the moon. Izuku flinched. And no. This power is completely different. But. And here is the catch, 𝗬𝗪𝗍 said. But I can't control it all. Izuku quickly added. It used up all my ki and it broke my arm. Well, that's a considerable drawback, 𝗬𝗪𝗍 said. Tell me, did you make the same mistake you made back when you were trying to learn Spirit Body Boost? The same mistake? Izuku repeated. Yes, you kept trying to focus all your ki in your arms and fist, making it explode, instead of letting it flow throughout your entire body. 𝗬𝗪𝗍 reminded him. Izuku felt so stupid. Of course. It's practically the same thing as Spirit Body Boost. I have to let it flow through me. Thank you, 𝗧𝗃-sensei. I'll try it right now. Izuku got into a stance and prepared to activate One for All. Not so fast. 𝗧 stopped him. If the result of you losing control was breaking your arm, then there is a good chance that even if you use it like spirit body boost, your body still won't be able to handle it. Try using it at a lower power, and then seeing how much you can handle. Izuku nodded. Yes, sensei. The monkey-tailed boy took a deep breath. He thought about One for All. If it was really like a spirit body boost, then he could restrain its power in a similar fashion. Ha-yeah! Izuku shouted as he activated One for All, and a red aura engulfed him. Wow, Videl said. That looks intense. Indeed. Are you sure you're using the lowest possible amount of power you can use? 𝗬𝗪𝗂 asked. Why yeah. I think I'm only using 2% of it. Izuku estimated. To test out his power, he started rapidly punching the air. His punches were noticeably faster, and they felt stronger to Izuku. He turned towards the training dummies and fired a few ki blasts. The blast hit the dummies, burning them and knocking them down, even partially destroying some of them. I definitely got stronger, Izuku grunted. But even using this little amount of it still feels painful. And I can feel my stamina draining away too. That is most likely because your body is not used to your new power. 𝗧 explained as Izuku turned off the power. Alright, let's get back to training. Izuku, you will be focusing on getting your body used to your new power. Wait. Izuku said. What are we going to call it? You have to be joking. 𝗬𝗪𝗂's face is palmed. Please tell me you aren't going to give that godly power a ridiculous name like you do your other attacks. Hey! Those attacks aren't ridiculous. Izuku protested. Although power from the gods. The 𝗳𝗃𝗵𝗲 about the Kaioken. That's actually not terrible, 𝗬𝗪𝗂 said. For once you've impressed me with your naming skills. PSH. Of course the minute he names something after the gods you're impressed. Videl snarked. Well then, let's get back to work, 𝗧 said. Izuku, let's perfect the Kaioken. Back to the present. The power of the Kaioken flooded into the beam, powering it up so it could shred the robots apart. After a few seconds, the beam dissipated, and the robots hit by it were partially destroyed and inoperational. Izuku smiled and deactivated the Kaioken. In the months since he first activated the Kaioken, he'd made significant progress. Now he could use 2% of One for All's power, without it harming his body, and he could even use higher levels of it as well, although those would still do damage to his body. And of course, the stamina draining was still an issue even at 2%. Meaning he had to use it sparring to give him a burst of power and speed. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 landed and turned to his partner. That's 6 for me and 7 for you. Let's go. Wait. Izuku called out, making 𝗬𝗪𝗂 stop. We have to help them. Izuku pointed at one of the other participants who was clutching their leg in pain. That will only slow us down, we have to go, 𝗬𝗪𝗂 told him. Izuku crossed his arms and glared at him. Doing is classic, I'm not going to change my mind about this pose. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 growled and ran over to the injured boy, knowing it would be faster if he just healed him. I think I broke my leg. The boy whined. Well then sit still, 𝗬𝗪𝗂 told him as he touched the boy's leg. A white aura covered the boy's leg, and slowly he started to feel better. It doesn't hurt anymore. The boy said. Booty feels so tired. One thing 𝗬𝗪𝗂 could do with his quirk was heal. Not only himself but others too. By touching them he could use either his ki or theirs to heal injuries. Not nearly as well as he could heal his own, but it was still very useful. The drawback depends on whether or not he used his own ki or theirs to heal them. If he used his own then he'd be draining his own ki. And if he used theirs then it would make the person exhausted from using their own life force to heal. He's healed. Now let's go. 𝗬𝗪𝗂 said. We need to find robots and fast. They already found us. Izuku pointed out a horde of 6 1-pointers followed by 3 2-pointers. Well, it looks like the gods have rewarded us for our good deed, 𝗬𝗪𝗃 smirked. I'm going to blitz them. Increase your speed to match. Izuku nodded. Kaioken. As Izuku was engulfed by the red aura of the Kaioken, 𝗬𝗪𝗃 pumped more ki into his body, and the two dashed towards the robots at breakneck speed. I'll get the 1-pointers, you get the 2, 𝗬𝗪𝗃 said, receiving a nod from Izuku. As they approached the robots, 𝗬𝗪𝗃 ran out in front. He cut through 3 of the 1-pointers in one big slash. 2 1-points tried to attack him from behind, but he quickly spun around and slashed them in half. He then dashed forward and shoved his blade right through the center of the last 1-pointer. As 𝗬𝗪𝗃 pulled his hand out of the destroyed robot, the 2-pointers both charged at him. But then Izuku dashed in, jumping over 𝗬𝗪𝗃 with a ki blade in each hand, and cut through both their necks. That's 12 for me and 11 for you, 𝗬𝗪𝗃 said. This is going great. These things are a lot easier to destroy than I thought. Izuku said. Maybe Videl has a better chance than we thought. Perhaps, 𝗬𝗪𝗃 said. But let's not concern ourselves with that now. We have points to acquire. And so the test has begun. Will Izuku and 𝗬𝗪𝗃 pass? Probably. Will Videl pass? Find out next time on To Go Even Further Beyond. My, we have some very interesting candidates this year, Nizu said as he sipped his tea. True. We have an Ida who performs very well as expected of a boy from a family of heroes. And I like the fire from that Bakugo boy. Midnight praised. Yeah, but his attitude is CRP. Present Mike added. We're not judging him based on attitude, we're judging him by performance, Aizawa said. And while he has the most villain points so far, he has no rescue points whatsoever. Technically the highest. All Might corrected. If you counted teams having the same points, then young Midoriya and young Kai would have the most by far. On the screen, the teachers watched as Izuku distracted 2 3-pointers, only for 𝗬𝗪𝗃 to cut them in half. But we don't. So they're scored individually. Aizawa said. Even still they are doing exceedingly well. I think this is the best we've seen a team of 2 students ever do. Nizu said. And they're helping other candidates along the way. Although the Kai kid doesn't seem to want to. Aizawa pointed out. But he's still doing it, so we have to give him the rescue points, Nizu said. If my calculations are correct, which they always are, then Kai is in first and young Midoriya is in second. With Bakugo in third. Many firsts this year. First students working as a team to get first and second place, and the first student to ever make it to their place with 0 rescue points. If we're done talking about them, we can address the elephant in the room, Aizawa said, looking at the screen showing Videl just barely destroying a 1-pointer. Poor girl. Midnight said. She's trying so strong. And she's doing a lot better than I thought she would, but this test was simply not made for her. All Might stared sadly at the screen. After watching the girl for a while, All Might could confirm that everything Izuku had told him about her was true. This girl was fierce, determined, and tough. All Might had been skeptical that she'd even managed to beat 1 robot, and the girl had managed to beat 10 using nothing but a piece of another destroyed robot that another student had beaten. It was impressive. But it took too long. It took her somewhere between half a minute and a minute and a half to beat each robot. And that was if she wasn't dodging attacks from other robots. This was much slower than the passing students, who tended to destroy them in seconds, while also helping other students. This combined with not having anything to increase her mobility or speed to travel around the huge environment, meant she wasn't beating enough robots. To be fair, there wasn't much else she could do. The girl was clearly proficient in martial arts, but that wouldn't work on robots. Meaning she had no choice but to find a weapon and blunt force her way through the test. Why don't we just tell students about the 𝗳𝗄 the robots? 𝗵𝗃𝗲 asked. Those 𝗳𝗄 are meant to evaluate a student's ability to find an enemy's weak point. That wouldn't work if we just told them where they are. Aizawa explained. But no one expects robots to have weak points, well, except for structural weak points, but anyone who'd notice that is probably in the support course, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 argued. I just had an idea. What about next year? We tell the students about but we make it so that each robot's SWCH is located randomly on a hidden location in their body. 𝗵𝗃𝗃 suggested. An interesting idea, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 said as he sipped his tea. Perhaps we'll try it next year. For now, let's release the 0-pointer, shall we? Back in the testing area. Izuku finished cutting through another 3-pointer. And that's 56 for me. And 58 for you. I think we've more than passed by now, 𝗬𝗪𝗬 said. But we cannot take chances with our futures. Let's dash. Suddenly, the ground started to rumble, shaking violently as something was rising out of the ground. Izuku and 𝗬𝗪𝗬 looked behind them and saw a huge robot, taller than all the buildings in the fake city, rise out of the ground, before starting to move towards them. I believe that is the 0-point robot, 𝗬𝗪𝗬 said before turning to Izuku. Let's use max speed for a few seconds to get as far from it as possible before we continue hunting robots. Wait, Izuku told his friend. Over there, in the rubble. In the distance, Izuku could see the brown-haired girl from earlier, 𝗳𝗃𝗃𝗃, trapped under a pile of rubble. Isn't that the girl from before? 𝗬𝗪𝗬 noted. Can't she make things float? Her quirk is probably at its limit. Or maybe it can't make things that big float. Izuku theorized. Either way, she needs our help. If we don't move her, she'll get crushed by the robot. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 sighed. I doubt you would allow such a thing to happen, but in the minuscule chance that could occur, I suppose we should save her. And quickly. The two pumped ki through their bodies, at full power. Kaioken times 3. Izuku shouted, using the next level of Kaioken. The two dashed over to the girl as quickly as possible, covering a great distance in only a matter of seconds. By the time they reached her, the robot was looming near. They used their strength and pulled the rubble off of her, and 𝗬𝗪𝗬 carried her up out of it before running away from the 0-pointer just as fast. Thank you, 𝗳𝗃𝗃 said after they stopped. You're welcome. Consider this thanks for your kindness earlier. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 said. Can you stand? Why yeah. But I think I hurt my ankle. She replied. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 laid her down and touched her ankle, using her ki to heal it. Oh. You healed it. The girl stood up. You two are lifesavers, you know that. That is what we aspire to be. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 looked at Izuku, about to tell him to go hunt more robots, but he found his partner was staring, transfixed on the 0-pointer. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 sighed. What are you thinking now? We should destroy the 0-pointer, Izuku suggested. What? 𝗳𝗃𝗃 shouted in surprise at the crazy idea. Why on earth would we do that? 𝗬𝗪𝗬 asked. It is as the name implies, worth 0 points. Are you saying we can't do it? Izuku asked. No, I'm saying we have no reason to, 𝗬𝗪𝗬 answered. It's not worth it. But it might cause problems for the others. If we don't take it down, someone could be hurt. Izuku reasoned. Also, it would be really, really cool. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 was about to point out how childish that logic was, when Izuku continued with, also Kaken is almost definitely gonna take down the one in his area. If we don't take down ours, then he'll probably gloat about it even if we got more points than him. 𝗬𝗪𝗬 shut his mouth and grit his teeth in anger. Well, then we have no choice. Do you have a plan to destroy this titan? 1 minute left, everyone. Shouted Mick's voice over the speakers. Okay, so I was thinking about using the special beam cannon. Izuku suggested. The special beam cannon was like an improved version of the Dodone ray. In that, like the Dodone ray, it's meant to be a powerful, yet narrow, piercing attack. This time Izuku would charge up energy and then shoot it out like a drill. The only downside of this is that it required a lengthy charge time and a lot of ki. Which is why Izuku more commonly used the Dodone ray. If I can pierce through its head, then maybe I can take out something important and stop it, Izuku said. That sounds like it could very easily fail. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 sighed. But I don't have any other ideas and we are running out of time. What do you want me to do? I'm going to use the Kyokon times 4, Izuku explained. I'm not sure I can pierce it all the way through otherwise. But that's going to hurt my body and sap my stamina a lot, so I need you to heal me and lend me energy while I charge. Alright. Let's do this quickly. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 said. Izuku turned around. Kyokon times 4. The boy was shrouded in that crimson aura once more, but this time it was bigger, more uncontrollable. Izuku felt his body strain under One for All's power until 𝗬𝗵𝗃 put his hand on his shoulder, and the pain became more bearable. Izuku took a deep breath and brought 2 fingers to his forehead. His fingers started to glow, and even spark like they were giving off electricity. Soon this glowing and sparking became more prominent, as Izuku gathered more and more energy in his fingers. Come on. Come on. Izuku thought as he charged the attack. The 0-pointer loomed closer, not too close. The distance between them was starting to get uncomfortably short. Should I leave? Ochako thought. She had stayed due to being exhausted from both the tests, but that robot was getting too close for her comfort. After a few more moments, Izuku moved his fingers and aimed them right at the robot's head. Now! Special beam cannon. Brrrr. A spiral, drill-like energy beam shot out of Izuku's fingers, reaching the 0-pointer's head and starting the drill through its hull. The metal was only able to hold it off for a few seconds before the beam pierced through the robot's head, and it came out the other side. The beam dissipated, and Izuku collapsed onto the floor. Even with 𝗬𝗵𝗃's help, it had still taken a lot out of him to do that, especially after using the Kyokon and his so much today. The robot stuttered, its movements slowing for a moment, before it went in reverse for a second, before going forward again. It started to emit crackling electricity noises as it spazzed out for everyone to see. Kaboom! And then, its head exploded. Apparently, Izuku had definitely hit something important, and now pieces of the robot were raining down around the area, which was thankfully void of people. Except for Izuku, 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and Ochako, and wouldn't you know it, one of the bigger pieces of the robot was heading right towards the duo that had destroyed it, with both of them being too tired to react. But just in the nick of time, Ochako grabbed them both, Izuku and 𝗬𝗵𝗃, and pulled them out of the way. Crash! The piece of metal smashed against the street, turning to pieces of shrapnel that luckily hit no one. And it's over. Mike announced the end of the test. All 3 of them took a sigh of relief. That was close, Ochako said. Yes, thank you very much for rescue. Had you not done that, Izuku would have been horribly injured, 𝗬𝗵𝗃 said. Just him? Ochako asked. My quirk makes me all but immortal. Had that hit me, I would have simply regenerated. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 explains. Izuku, not so much. Hehe, thanks. Izuku rubbed the back of his head sheepishly and gave her his brightest smile. You're welcome, Ochako said, before looking at the destroyed robot. I can't believe you did that for bragging rights. No, we did that so someone else wouldn't have bragging rights. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 corrected. Still, that's really petty, Ochako said. Yeah. Izuku agreed. But it was cool. We beat that thing. We actually beat it. Ochako giggled at his enthusiasm. Oh my god, his tail is wagging, that's so cute. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 looked at the 2 of them. Well, since we all get along so well, 𝗬𝗏𝗃 would mind if I asked you for your friendship. Izuku does not have many of those. Hey. Neither do you. Izuku pointed out. That is a choice. I don't need many friends when I have my devotion to the gods. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 said. Ochako snickered in amusement. Okay. That sounds fun. Doesn't seem like there's a dull moment with you guys. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 laughed. Believe me, for better and worse, there isn't. Sometime later. Izuku and 𝗬𝗵𝗃 were waiting by the gates for 𝗣𝗏𝗿. Ochako had already left saying she needed a shower and a nap, which neither of them could blame her for. When 𝗣𝗏𝗿 eventually came, she was not in a cheery mood. immediately telling both Izuku and 𝗬𝗪𝗀 how well she did on the test. However, it turns out they didn't need to read her body language to figure out how she did, as before they could say anything, she said. I failed. Izuku and 𝗬𝗪𝗀 looked at each other before looking at their friend concernedly. You don't know that, Izuku said. Don't jump to dash. 𝗬𝗪𝗀 put his hand on Izuku's shoulder. Izuku. Hope is a gift. False hope is a cruelty. Izuku pushed 𝗬𝗪𝗀's hand off his shoulder. But we don't know if I beat 13 robots, Izuku. 𝗲𝗏 interrupted him, her eyes pointing downward the entire time and her fist clenched. And almost all of them were one-pointers. Silence. Neither Izuku nor 𝗬𝗪𝗀 had nothing to say in response to that, as both of them knew there was little to no chance she passed. Let's just go home, 𝗲𝗏 said. The trip home maintained that dreadful silence. A couple weeks later. Izuku rushed through the forest, using his quirk to ensure he got to his destination in record time. He had just gotten his acceptance letter, and he, 𝗬𝗪𝗀, and 𝗲𝗏 all agreed to meet up at their treehouse. They'd built the treehouse when they were younger, and 𝗬𝗪𝗀 dubbed it Cammy's Lookout. Which was funny because he was the one who didn't want to build it until they told him he could go there when he didn't want to deal with his grandfather. When Izuku finally arrived at the tree, he quickly climbed it like the monkey boy he was and entered the lookout. About time you got here, was 𝗲𝗏's greeting to him when he got there. Izuku gave her a surprised stare. He'd expected her to still be all mopey and depressed like she was back when he'd last seen her at the exam. But now she seemed perfectly normal. She still didn't seem too happy, but she was always like that. It does vex me how one can have super speed and yet still be late, 𝗬𝗪𝗀 said with no small amount of annoyance. Did you seriously say the word vex? 𝗲𝗏 asked. Sorry. Mom and I were so excited that we ended up celebrating for a bit too long. Izuku apologized. Right, 𝗲𝗏 said. There was a long pause for a while. All of them knew what they were here for her, but neither 𝗬𝗪𝗀 nor Izuku wanted to bring it up with 𝗲𝗏 right there and had almost certainly failed. Except 𝗲𝗏 herself apparently. So you two passed. It wasn't even a question, 𝗲𝗏 said it like a statement. A testament to her faith in them. Of course, 𝗬𝗪𝗀 said. First place. There was never a doubt. I passed too. Second place. Izuku said. What about you? 𝗲𝗏, with a perfect poker face, pulled out her hollow messenger and played it. I am here. As a projection. Shouted a holographic All Might. Hello, Miss 𝗧𝗵𝗃 prefers to be called by her first name off, thank goodness. Hello Ms. 𝗲𝗏. I'm sure you're confused as to why you're seeing me. Well, I asked you to do your message personally. That took 𝗬𝗪𝗀 and Izuku by surprise. They had also both gotten an All Might message, but they expected that was because they had actually passed. All Might was going to be a heroics teacher, meaning that if 𝗲𝗏 failed then she wouldn't be seeing him. But yet he asked to do it personally. Unfortunately you only got 15 points. Unfortunately, that is not enough to pass you. Hollow Might said. There are also rescue points, given for when you save someone else, but you didn't get any of those. I'm sorry Ms. 𝗲𝗏. But you won't be accepted into the hero course. The dread that had come at the end of the exam had returned. It wasn't as strong this time as they already knew the result and had somewhat come to terms with it. But still, hearing the confirmation from All Might himself, it wasn't a great feeling. 𝗬𝗪𝗀 put a hand on her shoulder. I'm watch the whole thing, 𝗲𝗏 told them. But, this is not the end. Hollow Might continued. After watching you perform, I can say with certainty that even though you failed this test, you have what it takes to be a hero. Hone your skills, and enter the tournament of power. I know you can do it. Your friends, and I, believe in you. One day, you will be the first quirkless hero. Until then. Farewell. The hologram turned off, leaving the three teens in slightly stunned silence for a moment until 𝗲𝗏 smirked. He's right, 𝗲𝗏 said. I just have to work harder and kick butt in the tournament. Humph. I don't know why you're only so reassured now. I've been telling you this for a long time. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 said. Although, All Might does have aura of comfort that I not necessarily lack, but do not excel in the same way he does. He did it. He did the thing I asked for. Izuku said, getting confused looks from both Videl and 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁. Oh, right, you weren't there. Remember when Video was upset because she wasn't sure she could get into you, eh? The same day we met All Might. You mean when you grabbed onto him and catapulted into the sky? Videl asked. Yeah. Well, the reason I did that is because I wanted to ask him if he thought Videl could be a hero. And I asked him to tell her that to cheer her up. Izuku explained. And he finally did it. The two of them looked at him in bewilderment. You're telling me that you let yourself get launched 100 feet in the air, just to ask All Might to help me out of my funk? Videl asked. Yes. Izuku said with no shame. For the first few moments, he just got more bewildered looks, before they changed to resigned "of course you did" looks. I don't know whether to slap you or hug you. Videl sighed. I vote for both. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 held up his palm, glowing with ki. I'll slap him, you can hug him. Wait. Slap. And so starts a new chapter in the lives of these three friends. While Videl may not be joining them, Izuku and 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 have made it into the hero course with flying colors. What will happen once they reach you, eh? What new people will they meet? And how mad is Bakugo going to be when he finds out he got third? Find out next time, on Strongest of Them All. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁, Izuku, and Videl stood outside the U gates once more, this time in their uniforms. As students. Well, guess this is where we split off. Videl sighed. I'm off to Gen Edition, try not to get into any fights, 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 told her. I know it is in your barbaric nature, but if you get kicked out and lose your chance at being a hero, Izuku will burst into tears. Hey! Izuku shouted in protest as Videl chucked and ruffled his hair. Try not to let anyone walk all over him, Videl told 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁. And don't let Bakugo go too long without getting punched in the face. I do not punch, I slice. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 corrected, but I see your point. We will see you in several hours. See ya, Videl said as she left towards her own class. Izuku and 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 went on their way, moving through the halls until they reached a door that read 1A. At last, now, let us see who we shall be spending the next 3 years with, 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 said, opening the door revealing "You wanna fight glasses?" shouted Bakugo. Instigating a fight so quickly. Are you sure you're trying to be a hero? Shouted the blue-haired boy from the entrance exam. Both Izuku and 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 stood there stunned for a moment, at the odds of them getting both Bakugo and the boy from the exam as classmates. By Zeno. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 groaned. What had I done in a previous life to deserve such torment? This complaint gathered the attention of the two arguing students. Bakugo predictably growled at them, however, the blue-haired boy simply marched over to the two of them. You too. The boy shouted. My name is 𝗫𝗫𝗍𝗃 and I stop. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 put his hand up to silence him. Ida was it, I have no interest in hearing any more of your prattle. Your loud, uninformed stupidity caused me to embarrass myself in front of a pro hero. It is clear that you are a dull-witted ill-mannered ga. Izuku stopped 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 by lightly elbowing him in the arm. That's rude, Zakon. He didn't even finish his sentence. He might have been trying to apologize. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 rolled his eyes and was about to call Izuku overly optimistic, but Ida spoke first. That is exactly right. Ida shouted. 𝗬𝗵𝘃𝗁 looked at him with disbelieving eyes. Gawking at him as if he had just told him the sky was purple. To beg your pardon. You are absolutely correct in everything that you said. Ida bowed apologetically. My questioning of the staff was impetuous, my calling out Midoriya was unwarranted, and my attempt to scold you for teaming up was done without researching the proper rules of the exam and relying on hearsay. The stress of the exam caused me to act improperly and in an unacceptable manner. I would like to sincerely apologize for this horrible first impression, and ask that it not color your impression of me. While 𝗬𝗼𝗂 was still looking at him like some sort of impossible paradox, Izuku was smiling ear to ear. Of course we forgive you. We didn't give the best first impression either, so let's just start over. My name is 𝗧𝗵𝗲 and this is 𝗬𝗼𝗂. Ida's eyes widened when he heard 𝗬𝗼𝗂's last name, and it looked like it caught the attention of two other students as well. Kai. He is a member of that prestigious family. Yes, 𝗬𝗼𝗂 said, finally regaining his composure. I am in fact a member of the Kai family. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 continued to glare at Ida, but this one held less bite to it. It was more like he was inspecting Ida. I must admit you caught me off guard with your apology. It is uncommon for people to admit their mistakes, especially this quickly. A good quality if nothing else. However, the scale of your offense is quite serious. I will not forgive you so quickly. You must earn my trust. Just compliment him a few times and he'll get over it, Izuku told him, earning a glare from his friend. Must you constantly undermine me? 𝗬𝗼𝗂 asked. If I didn't, everyone would get mad at you. Izuku reminded him. Before 𝗬𝗼𝗂 could argue, they heard a familiar voice from behind them. I recognize those hairstyles. It's you too. Izuku and 𝗬𝗼𝗂 turned around and saw Uraraka standing behind them. Ah, Uraraka. At last, someone I don't despise. 𝗬𝗼𝗂 said. Although, was it really our hair that gave us away? I would have thought it was the green skin and monkey tail. To be fair, Zakon, you've had that hairstyle since you were a child. Izuku pointed out. As have you, at least mine is a choice, rather than simply being unable to tame my own hair, 𝗬𝗼𝗂 remarked. It's been a while since we last talked, thanks again for the help on the exam, Ochako said. Ah, it was nothing, it got us points in the end anyway, so we benefited from it too. Izuku rubbed the back of his head with a big red blush on his face. If you're here to socialize, then get out, said a gruff voice from behind Ochako. The three kids immediately looked behind her, and saw some kind of giant yellow caterpillar. The caterpillar turned, revealing the face of a man, showing that it was just a sleeping bag. The person inside said sleeping bag, then crawled out, revealing himself to be a rather disheveled-looking man. I am your homeroom teacher, 𝗳𝗏𝗍𝗪. Everyone get in your seats and be quiet, the man said. After a few minutes, everyone was in their seats, heads forwards, and focused on the teacher in front of them. It took you 3 minutes to settle down, that will have to improve, 𝗳𝗏𝗧𝗪 said. All of you, change into your gym uniforms and meet me outside. Before anyone could question what exactly was going on, the teacher just walked out of the room. Well, what just happened? Ochako asked. Well, it seems that our teacher is not wasting any time. Good. My time is precious after all, 𝗬𝗼𝗂 said. It's like every word he says makes me want to punch him in the face, Jiro muttered, commenting on 𝗬𝗏𝗄's smug tone. Later, outside. Most of the students had already lined up and they were awaiting the last few. So, are we to assume you are Eraserhead? 𝗬𝗼𝗂 asked. 𝗳𝗏𝗪 raised an eyebrow, not letting his slight shock at them knowing who he was. And how did you figure that out? Well, neither of us recognized you, and we know practically every hero in the city except for the underground ones, so we assumed you were an underground hero. Given that there aren't that many of them, and that your description fits what we know of Eraserhead, we assumed you were Eraserhead. Izuku explained. Oh great. Fanboys. 𝗳𝗏𝗪 sighed. Fortunately, before 𝗳𝗏𝗪's headache could grow, the last few students finally made it to the field. Alright, now we'll be performing a test of your abilities. It'll be like all the tests you've had previously in gym classes, except now, you can use your quirks, 𝗳𝗏𝗪 explained. Really? Awesome, said Kaminari excitedly. I'm getting number 1, F airs. Bakugo shouted, still very salty about the entrance exam, feeling he was robbed of his rightful spot as number one by the reveal or rescue points. This should be fun. Ochako cheered. Aizawa seemed to take this jubilation as a personal insult. Fun. You think this is going to be fun? Well, then how about this? That person who gets last on this test will be expelled. What? Shouted most of the class. You can't do that. Shouted Mina. That's not fair. Ochako protested. Villain attacks, natural disasters, random acts of violence, Aizawa said. Life isn't fair. Get used to it. It appears this teacher is not one that tolerates weakness. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 thought. Not that affects me. However, is it truly right to judge someone so swiftly? I will simply have to wait and see. This could be a ruse after all. Sometime later, Aizawa watched the children closely as they performed. He wasn't gonna lie, he was slightly annoyed at how well 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and Izuku were doing. The two of them had rubbed him the wrong way during the entrance exam. Using teamwork, not taking the test too seriously, and needlessly destroying the 0-pointer, essentially doing it for bragging rights. But he had to, begrudgingly, give the two credit. They had not only gotten first and second on the entrance exam even while not giving it their all and doing all that needless CRP, but they were also performing exceedingly well during this test. 𝗬𝗵𝗃's spirit body boost meant he would excel in most of his test, and while Izuku's boost was weaker, that sporadic burst of the Kaioken meant he was performing just fine. Honestly, Aizawa didn't think he was gonna expel anyone from this test. The kids in last so far weren't in last because they were slacking or lacked potential, it was because their quirks weren't suited for this in comparison to the other students. Aizawa sighed. First day and no expulsions. Either he was getting soft, or this class was gonna be a nightmare. After the test, the class waited anxiously for the results. Some students were extremely nervous that they might be expelled. Others were more confident that they wouldn't be last. And some were confident they would be first. These are the results, Aizawa said curtly, before revealing the results on a nearby board. The results lit up, revealing each of their placements. Izuku placed in 6th. Looks like I still need to improve. Izuku thought. He was a little frustrated, but overall he was okay with his placement. But at the same time, he knew he could do better. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and Bakugo were in shock that neither of them took first, with Bakugo placing at 3rd and 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and 4th respectively. How the hell am I not above the ponytail and half and half? Bakugo screeched. How did I manage to fall below Bakugo? 𝗬𝗵𝗃 gagged as if the notion would cause him to vomit. Did I restrict myself too much? And in last place, was Toru Hagakure. No. The invisible girl cried, with Mina coming in to console her. Oh, and by the way, no one is being expelled, Aizawa revealed. What? Shouted most of the class. Although some didn't look surprised. It was just a logical ruse to draw out your full potential, Aizawa said. Class dismissed. Of course it was a logical ruse. To expel someone on the first day for something like this would be absurd, Momo said. Agreed. If sensei were to expel someone for this, then he would be a fool. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 turned to his classmates. You all should have more faith in your elders. Could you two no stand next to each other? Your combined smugness might crush us all. Siro said. If Splutty Hands stands over there, then their smugness might eclipse the sun. Kaminari jokes. The F you say, dunce face. Bakugo barked. Smug. Momo seems genuinely horrified by that statement. Why does everyone insist I am smug? I am merely confident in myself. As I should be. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 said. Dude, every time you speak, I can hear you looking down on us, Jiro commented. Izuku watched, amused at the back and forth banter that unfolded in front of him. This class would be interesting, that's for sure. Later, at 𝗬𝗃's entrance, Izuku, 𝗬𝗵𝗃, and Ochako waited outside the gate, as the person they were waiting for finally arrived. "Hey!" 𝗲𝗏𝗿 greeted them, before spotting 𝗳𝗃𝗁. "Oh, it's that girl from the entrance exam. 𝗧𝗑𝗏𝗏, right? Yup. Nice to meet you again." 𝗳𝗃𝗁 said. "Sorry, you didn't pass the exam." 𝗲𝗏𝗿 waved her hand dismissively. "It's fine. I'll get in after the tournament." "So, you hanging out with us now?" "I guess so. You guys seem nice, so why not?" 𝗳𝗃𝗁 answered. "It is imperative that we form bonds as defenders of justice and enforcers of the gods," 𝗬𝗵𝗃 said. "Gods?" 𝗳𝗃𝗁 questioned. Before 𝗬𝗵𝗃 could go on, a familiar voice called out to them. "Wait just a moment." Everyone looked behind them and saw 𝗳𝗏 running towards them. The reactions to this varied from 𝗬𝗵𝗃's and 𝗲𝗏𝗿's less than pleased expressions, 𝗳𝗃𝗁's curious expression, while 𝗧𝗂𝗃 seemed to be happy about this at least. "God, speaking of people from the entrance exam." 𝗲𝗏𝗿 groaned, ready to argue if she needed to. "It's okay, he already apologized," 𝗧𝗂𝗃 explained. "He was just overstressed during the exam." "Oh." 𝗲𝗏𝗿 raised an eyebrow, lowering her guard, just a little bit. "That's right. I am here to make up for my behavior during the exam," 𝗳𝗏 said. "That is why I wish to walk with you all to the station." Before 𝗲𝗏𝗿 and 𝗬𝗵𝗃 could say anything, 𝗧𝗂𝗃 jumped in. "Sure. Feel free." "Excellent, now let us go," 𝗳𝗏 said. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and 𝗲𝗏𝗿 glared at 𝗧𝗂𝗃, but the monkey boy just gave them a somewhat apologetic smile that said, "Just give him a chance." Not having much of a choice now, the five of them walked together. "So, 𝗬𝗵𝗃, from what I've seen you are rather religious," 𝗳𝗏 noted. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 seemed to glow at that moment as if he was waiting all day for someone to say that. "Why, yes. I am a proud follower of Zeno and the gods." "Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier. But who is Zeno and what gods are you talking about?" 𝗳𝗃𝗁 asked. 𝗲𝗏𝗿 sighed and 𝗧𝗂𝗃 shook his head, as they both realized what was about to happen. 𝗳𝗏 and 𝗬𝗵𝗃 simply looked at her shocked. "Are you saying you've never heard of 𝗧𝗏?" 𝗳𝗏 asked. "While I admit I don't know much about it, to not know its existence." Well. Any trace of a bad mood vanished from 𝗬𝗵𝗃, as he seemed more than happy to explain his religion. "It seems I will have to explain it to you. It starts in the beginning." "Here we go," 𝗲𝗿𝗿 said, pulling out her phone. "In a timeless, spaceless void, the oldest being in existence, the ruler of creation, the omni-king Zeno, was born. He created the universe and then created two different races of gods. The 𝗂𝗏𝗃 were the gods of creation, meant to create the planets and all life in the universe. The 𝗧𝗃𝗃, gods of destruction, meant to destroy corrupt worlds." 𝗬𝗵𝗃 explained. The 𝗂𝗏𝗃 went throughout the new universe, creating new worlds, with many different races of beings. And thousands of years later those worlds would be inspected by the 𝗧𝗃𝗃, who would judge the most 𝗵𝗏𝗍 species by how virtuous they are. If the species is deemed unsalvageable, they and their world would be destroyed. Okay, 𝗳𝗃𝗁 said awkwardly, she didn't really expect a whole monologue from this. 𝗳𝗏 on the other hand was intently listening, giving 𝗬𝗵𝗃 his full attention. "Interesting. When the 𝗧𝗃𝗃s came to Earth and found humanity, they deemed them unfit to live and were prepared to destroy them." 𝗬𝗵𝗃 continued. However, the 𝗂𝗏𝗃s said it was too soon. That there was still hope for humanity. The 𝗧𝗃𝗃 agreed to return 1,000 years later, and if humanity was still as they were, they would be destroyed. The 𝗂𝗏𝗃 knew that humanity would need help to reach true perfection, and so they gifted humanity with quirks. Hoping that people would use this power, to quash evil, and guide humanity to utopia. How interesting, I had heard this religion surfaced after quirks started to become more widespread, so it only makes sense that the existence of quirks would be part of this story. 𝗳𝗏 said, deeply interested. Not because he believed in them, and more because he found it interesting to hear about someone else's belief system. "I am glad you are interested, of course, this is only the surface. There are many more stories, which I would be happy to share. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 offered. As 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and 𝗧𝗜𝗍 nerded out, 𝗧𝗑 and 𝗳𝗿𝗍 took 𝗳𝗑 aside. Looks like they're gonna be like that for a while, 𝗳𝗍 said. Let this be a lesson, never let 𝗬𝗵𝗃 monologue. He loves the sound of his own voice, and will go on forever. I can see that, 𝗳𝗍 said looking back at 𝗬𝗵𝗃 and 𝗧𝗜𝗍. Hey, I have an idea. 𝗧𝗑 said. Me, 𝗧𝗂𝗏 and 𝗳𝗍 were gonna go training at 𝗧𝗂𝗏's mansion. You want to come in? 𝗳𝗍 went wide-eyed at the word, mansion. Having never been to one before, she was eager to see what it was like. Yeah, sure, sounds great. 𝗧𝗑 gave her a wide smile and his tail was spinning around behind him. A new sparring partner was always a good time. It meant he got to fight an opponent with a completely different fighting style. Alright. Let's go. 𝗧𝗑 shouted excitedly. Later, on the training grounds of the Kai Manor. The training grounds were located outside of the manor itself. It was basically a huge backyard consisting of multiple arenas, with different terrains that would allow for more extensive training. 𝗧𝗑 and 𝗳𝗍 stood on the opposite side of a forestry arena, with multiple trees inside the ring as well as a few rocks and boulders. 𝗬𝗏 was absent today, so they were just going to spar. May the gods look down upon this fight. Begin. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 signaled the fight to start. 𝗳𝗍 knew 𝗧𝗑 had the long-range advantage, so she immediately hid behind a nearby boulder. Good idea, but I already prepared for that. 𝗧𝗑 raised his palm. Reverse shot. 6 pink blasts fired from his hand, missing the boulder completely and flying past 𝗳𝗍. Reverse shot. 𝗳𝗍 thought. Wait, does that mean, like 𝗳𝗍 suspected, the blast suddenly about-faced and started coming right at her? 𝗳𝗍 jumped away from the rock to dodge to blast, but much to her horror, 𝗧𝗑 had been waiting for this and was charging up an attack, waiting for her to leap away from her cover. 𝗧𝗑 brought his hands forward and aimed his attack at 𝗳𝗍. Gallic Gun. The Gallic Gun was basically a faster, weaker version of the Kamehameha. Taking about half the time to charge but also being a bit more than half as strong. Fire. A purple beam fired from his hands and hit 𝗳𝗍 right in the chest. 𝗳𝗍 was sent flying back into a tree, as she was pressed between it and the beam. It felt like a blast of pressured hot air was hitting her torso. When the attack dissipated, 𝗧𝗑 didn't give her a chance to recover. Kaioken. The red aura surrounded 𝗧𝗑, as he extended out his palm, and a ki ball formed, but this ball started growing bigger than the average ki blast until it reached the size of 𝗧𝗑's head. Big Bang Attack. The ki blast flew out at 𝗳𝗍. Luckily for her, the time it had taken to charge the thing was enough for her to recover, and she jumped away from the attack before it hit her. The blast hit the tree, and like its namesake, made a big bang. A large explosion that brought the tree down next to 𝗳𝗍. Seeing the opportunity, 𝗳𝗍 grabbed the tree, using her quirk on it to negate its gravity, before picking it up to use as a weapon. Now this tree was about 12 feet long, and since it was in an arena with limited space, it meant that his range advantage was nearly nullified. So the best thing to do was cut it down. As 𝗳𝗍 charged at him with the tree, he formed a ki blade in his hand. 𝗳𝗍 moved the tree at 𝗧𝗑 like a spear, but 𝗧𝗑 moved to the side of the attack, and cut the treetop, shortening it. 𝗧𝗑 repeated this motion, cutting down the tree more and more. When 𝗧𝗑 started getting closer to her, 𝗳𝗍 suddenly threw the tree up in the air and ran at 𝗧𝗑 with her hands outstretched, hoping to make him weightless. 𝗧𝗑 wasn't sure he had enough space to get away from her, so he activated Kaioken ×3 and extended his palm towards her. Demon Explosion Wave. An explosion of ki, looking similar to one of Bakugo's explosions, burst out of 𝗧𝗑's hand and blasted 𝗬𝗧𝗏 back. 𝗳𝗍 fell back, as the explosion sent 𝗧𝗑 flying back before he made a rough landing on his feet. 𝗳𝗍 started getting up and noticed that 𝗧𝗑 was shaking off his smoking hand. It seemed that using a blast that powerful with no charge up took a toll on him. When 𝗳𝗍 got back up, 𝗧𝗑 used his other hand to start shooting small ki blasts at her. She ran away from the blasts, once again hiding behind a nearby boulder. Should I reverse shot again? She's probably expecting that, Izuku thought. Before he could do anything though, the boulder started floating, and it and Ochako came closer to him as the girl used the large study rock as a shield. Oh, clever, Izuku praised, before extending his palm up. Reverse shot. 5 more pink blasts shot out of Izuku's hand and went past Ochako and her rock. Knowing that the blast would turn around and hit her from behind, she wanted to turn the rock around to block it, but if she did that then she'd be open to attacks from the front. Seeing as defense didn't seem to be an option, she decided to go on the offense. She kicked the rock, sending him full speed at Izuku, while she got out of the way just in time to dodge the returning reverse shot. Izuku stopped the rock with his foot and kicked it into the air. Ochako ran in between a rock and a tree, meaning she was covered from both the front and the back. She's covered both front and back. Guess it's time for something new, Izuku thought. Izuku raised his hand upwards and formed another ki ball about as big as an average sports ball. Spirit Ball. Izuku threw the ball of ki. It moved slower than the normal ki blast, and it made its way over Ochako. Then, Izuku motioned downwards with his fingers, and the ki ball suddenly changed direction and started going down towards Ochako. Her eyes widened and she ran out of her cover to avoid the ball, but Izuku moved his fingers to the left, and the ball turned again to follow Ochako. As Ochako ran from the ball, she noticed that while it was slow in comparison to Izuku's other ki attacks, it was still a bit faster than she could run, but it wasn't particularly good at making turns, so she could just move around and it would never catch her. Another thing she noticed is that Izuku wasn't hitting her with any ki blasts while she was running. So either he was running out of steam, or he was too focused on controlling the ki ball to attack her with anything else. Seeing this, Ochako ran towards Izuku, serpentining to make sure the ball couldn't catch up to her. Uh-oh. This backfired. Izuku panicked. He couldn't afford to keep using the spirit ball at this point, and so he detonated it. However, Ochako had gotten close, her hands were reaching for him and were less than a foot away from his face. Izuku activated a ki burst that forced Ochako away, as he jumped back. Ochako smirked and brought her hands together. Release. Ha! It was then that Izuku suddenly noticed the strange shadows above him. He looked up and saw that everything Ochako had been floating this whole battle was above him. Broken up trees, rocks, and even that boulder that he had thrown up. It was surrounding him, and ready to fall right on his head. It was a trap. Izuku panicked. He might have been able to escape the range of the attack if he increased his speed with the Kaioken, but he was too close to the edge of the ring. The only way of escape was forward, and if that happened Ochako would grab him. His best option was to attack. Kaioken times 4. Izuku shouted, the red aura surrounding him. Izuku gathered up energy as quickly as he could, inside himself. Electric-like energy crackled from his body, and just as the debris was about to hit him. Galaxy Breaker. Izuku shouted. A blue aura covered his red one, and then it exploded upwards. The energy destroyed all the debris above him, keeping it from touching him as the rest it rained down onto the ground around him. After a few moments, Izuku's attack shrank and then dissipated completely, leaving an exhausted Izuku. The monkey-tailed boy's knee gave out, and he fell on his behind. I think that is enough. 𝗬𝗵𝗃 stepped in to stop the fight. Izuku, I think we can agree you're done fighting. No, Iak. Izuku tried to move, but his body was hurting all over from that explosive attack combined with his highest level of Kaioken. He's done alright. Ochako is the winner. Videl called. Ochako took a sigh of relief. Ah! I was so close to throwing up. You're strong, Uraraka. Izuku praised her while 𝗬𝗵𝗃 came over to heal him. That last attack was really cool. Ochako blushes a bit at the praise. Ah! Well, you gave me an advantage by putting a bunch of things here for me to float. I don't think I could beat you in a normal fight. Don't underestimate yourself. That was a really good fight. Izuku's eyes lit up, as he suddenly got an idea. And it gave me an idea for a new technique. What is this new technique Izuku thought of? And when will he get to use it? Find out next time, on to go even further beyond.